WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. According to recent census numbers, the face of North Carolina, the country for that matter, is changing. Here in Mecklenburg County, the Hispanic and Latino community, the fastest growing ethnic community. Meanwhile, black voters really proving to be powerful at the ballot box just in the last year. Take a look at this. 80% of black men supported Joe Biden. But an interesting statistic not enough people talk about. That's down slightly from Hillary Clinton's 82% in 2016 and a big drop from Obama's percent in 2008 and 87% in 2012. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we're going to speak to one Republican about how the GOP is trying to make some inroads with voters of color here in the Carolinas. But first, there are currently no black women in the U.S. Senate, 100 people. And not a single black woman. Today on Flashpoint, a woman hoping to change that. Former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Cheri Beasley. She's facing State Senator Jeff Jackson and former State Senator Erica Smith in the Democratic primary for that Senate seat. Over on the Republican side, the big names are U.S. Congressman Ted Budd, former North Carolina Governor, former Charlotte Mayor Pat McCrory, and former Congressman Mark Walker. Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate Cheri Beasley joining us today here on Flashpoint. Ms. Beasley, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ben.
So first of all, I'll start with the softballs, okay? Why are you running?
You know, I have served as a judge for 22 years and fully understand that it is so important to have someone there who understands the importance of justice. And I have pursued justice when I went to law school, when I became a judge, and I am pursuing justice now as a candidate for the United States Senate. You know, I'm a working mom and I've been a judge, and I know that there have been so many times when laws made in Washington have failed the people of North Carolina. We really need someone in the United States Senate who represents the people of North Carolina, who understands the impact that these laws have on people's everyday lives. And I'm excited about folks understanding that this election is not just about today. It's really about making sure that we have laid a foundation for the success of generations to come, the children who are not even born. And so I want the people here in North Carolina to know that there's an opportunity to have someone who's different, who has a wealth of experience in shaping and creating policy and understanding the impact of law, who has worked so hard to defend and uplift justice and people across the state of North Carolina. And that's why I'm running for the United States Senate.
I don't need to tell you that the lack of women of color in the U.S. Senate is stark. Your own race aside, how important is it to you that we get a U.S. Senate that reflects more of the American people?
You know, I am certainly very aware that there are only 24 women currently serving in the United States Senate, and that there are no African American women. I can tell you from my own experience as a very young lawyer, the first time I ever saw an African American woman presiding in a courtroom as a judge, I was an adult. And it was Justice Patricia Timmons-Goodson from Fayetteville, and I can tell you the impact that that had over my life. So I don't sell short the importance of my voice being heard on the United States Senate floor, but I'm really running to serve the people of North Carolina, to fight for access to health care. We have grave issues here. We're in the middle of a pandemic and people have great needs. So I'm excited about offering myself as a candidate for the United States Senate. Looking
at fundraising, it looks like you're outpacing just about everybody else in this race right now. That said, I want to ask you, because it's been noted in the news recently that you've had two top campaign officials recently quit. Typically, in a campaign that's going really well in fundraising, you're not having people at the top quit. Why do you think you had two of your top people, finance and campaign manager, step down?
You know, I'm very grateful for the strides we've made. I'm so grateful to all the people across the state who have been really excited and enthusiastic about my candidacy. I'm excited about the strides and the hard work that my team has made. We're expanding our team now, really excited about where we are, and really excited about continuing to move forward, continue to meet the people across this great state, to listen, to hear about their issues and concerns, to be responsive in the most appropriate way.
You've held statewide office. You are a known entity. However, Jeff Jackson, really well known here in the Charlotte area, of course. Why do you think, in your view, a better candidate for the Democratic nomination?
Well, you're right. I have served in statewide elected office for over a decade, and I'm the only candidate in this race who, Democrat or Republican, who has won 2 statewide elections. 2014 was a very difficult year for Democrats, not just here in North Carolina, but across the nation, and I was able to be successful in my statewide election to the Supreme Court, and then of course I ran and was successful in 2008 for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. So this is about experience. I'm the only candidate who has run an entire branch of government with over 7,000 staff and employees and court leaders and administrators, and led a branch of government through creating policies around paid family leave and really moving forward on the school to prison pipeline and family leave policies and court access and through the pandemic. And so this is about understanding and creating policies that shape people's everyday lives and understanding the impact of those laws. And it's also about being successful in an election. 2022 will be a very difficult election cycle, and it's important to have a candidate who's been tested. I've been tested. I'm so grateful to the people of North Carolina who have been excited about my candidacies in my respective elections before now, and really excited about continuing to have those constructive conversations with people across the state about the things they care deeply about.
Pat McCrory, already taking aim, said on Twitter a few weeks ago that you are aligning yourself with extremists within the Democratic Party who are anti-police. I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
I don't even really know what that means. I have served as a judge for 22 years. I have had great working relationships with law enforcement and law enforcement communities, and really excited about continued support from law enforcement and bipartisan support. And so what is really important here is to be thoughtful about making sure that there is accountability and trust and respect between law enforcement and the communities across the state of North Carolina. And the best way to do that is through federal legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but it's also about making sure that we're having constructive and open conversations among law enforcement leaders and lawmakers. That's hugely important. And it's also really important that we not allow people to be divisive. North Carolina is facing some real difficult challenges, and the one thing we need to do is to really strive to have leaders who are going to unite us and not divide us.
Running for Senate, no doubt, extremely difficult, but also just being in the Senate right now can be a fine line of walking a sort of a thin rope. If you were in the Senate right now, how would you come down on things like you've got the voting rights, but you've also got the filibuster? Are you, if you were in the Senate right now, would you be okay with getting rid of something like the filibuster for the bigger picture of, say, voting rights protections or some of these other things that the president wants to get passed?
I am very concerned and understand that here we are 56 years after the passage of the Voting Rights Act, and we are still fighting for basic, fundamental rights around the right to vote. I'm deeply concerned about that. And I also know it's been almost 200 days the Senate has sat on the For the People Act. And the For the People Act is exactly what the people of North Carolina want passed. They want to know that there is voter protection. And they also want to know that there will be a senator there who's going to fight to protect this very basic and fundamental right, the right to vote. And they don't want the Senate to play around with that. And so we need to be respectful of that. I certainly would fight for and vote for the For the People Act. We must be clear that the legislation that 48 states around this country have either passed or proposed, that legislation is certainly anti-North Carolinian and it is anti-American. And so I would absolutely fight for that. It's important that if that's the kind of legislation that people across this state and this country are supporting, that the senator ought to do the same.
How would you describe this administration's reaction and handling of Afghanistan over the last couple of weeks?
I know that this is a very difficult situation, and I am deeply grateful for, and I think we're all indebted to the service members and humanitarian workers and diplomats who have served so well in Afghanistan and have and really understood the importance and the magnitude of being present. It is so important that we protect Americans who are still there and also protect those who are at deep risk. And I'm glad that our country understands we have that responsibility.
But what do you think about the Biden White House, how they've handled this?
You know, this is difficult, and the first thing we need to do is to make sure that those who are there are safe and removed. That's the first thing, and that has to be everyone's priority. Final
question: what grade would you give President Biden so far? Now, say 7 or 8 months into office.
You know, President Biden came in. We were in the heart of a pandemic, and we did not have the vaccine, and he has worked so hard to make sure that the vaccine is available to folks, and really worked hard to quell this pandemic. He made sure that the American Families Act was passed, and it's provided great relief for families who have greatly struggled through this pandemic. And so I would grade President Biden a B. He's worked hard to serve the people of this country, and this process continues. He continues to work hard, and it's so important for us to be thoughtful about what it takes to make sure we're getting the American people back on their feet and being supportive of families across the state and across this country.
Former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, current Senate candidate, Cheri Beasley. Ms. Beasley, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Ben, thank you so much for having me.
We should say, along with Cheri Beasley, we've also interviewed Jeff Jackson and Pat McCrory. We plan to interview Congressman Mark Walker coming up in September. We plan on interviewing the other candidates as well here on Flashpoint. More Flashpoint after this.